Prezi is an interesting alternative to PowerPoint that you tend to see in conferences that are populated by a lot of freaky types, such as those from the humanities and some of the social sciences. Nevertheless, it does provide a very different interface from a PowerPoint presentation, and sometimes it's actually a useful tool. What we're going to cover in this particular presentation is a quick overview of what Prezi is. Then what we'll do is we'll take a look at the Prezi interface, both for presentations and for operating Prezi. And then we'll look at how a Prezi presentation is actually put together. This will be a very quick overview. There's plenty of content online about using Prezi if you want to get into more detail. So what is Prezi? Well, the easiest way to explain it is to just go there and log in. We'll go to Prezi, log in. I've got a free educational account. And we'll just take a look at one of the presentations that I created. Indeed, the only Prezi presentation that I ever created, which was a study of various commodity systems in Australia. And so what I want to do here is I'm going to go over here, and the closest analogy to Prezi, I think, is something like Google Maps, which is to say it is a tool that allows you to basically create a background and zoom in at any level of detail. And you can also embed presentations with it. So the first thing I'll just talk about briefly is why you might use Prezi. In this particular case, I was doing research on 3 commodity systems. The commodity systems for sheep, for rapeseed, and for cotton. And not only did I have to present to the group that I was working with, but I also had to gather lots and lots of research. So what I did is I drew a diagram showing cotton, sheep, and rapeseed. And then I looked at the different layers, the farming, the input supply, processing layer, products, and ultimate users. And this is sort of a typical agribusiness commodity system. In business, we sometimes refer to them as value chains. But they have a lot of interaction because, for example, both cotton and sheep feed into the fiber system. All of them feed into the energy system. And so what I did is I was gathering research materials. I actually used Prezi as a way of organizing the research. So if I were to click here, what it will do is it'll bring me to this particular site, and you can't really see it here. I could probably zoom in some more. And you can actually see some of the various research I did. And it's like Google Maps. You can drag it around. You can jump back and forth. And as a consequence, for certain types of information, it's a fairly convenient way of working. So how does Prezi work? Well, there are two interfaces on Prezi, a presentation interface and an editing interface for actually changing the presentation. Prezi is an entirely cloud-based program, which means that it will run on virtually any machine that has a web browser and supports Java, and it's all saved on a remote site. You can actually pay for a desktop version of Prezi if you want to use it disconnected from the internet, but that's not the way you would normally use it. So when we go into edit mode, essentially Prezi is sort of what you might say frame oriented. You create frames of references, and then these become part of the object you're creating. So for example, if I were to, let's see, there's an, if I click here, I could then perhaps zoom in a little bit. Actually, I'm using the scroll bar to zoom a little bit more. We'll come over here, and let's say I wanted to talk about some technology forces on the farm. What I could do is I could draw a frame. We'll draw a frame here. It tells you when it's sort of a 4x3, that's fine. Notice add this over to the list of frames. I could then perhaps zoom in a little bit more. If I click on the frame, oops, here we go. I guess I'll zoom in a little bit more. I could create a title. Here we'll call this test frame. I could then maybe put in some sample text. We'll put in some body text. This is sample text. I could also possibly embed another frame. As I mentioned, you can go infinitely deep with these things as far as I know. So we go into a draw bracket frame, and now I can put in another frame here. And I'll call this one inner frame. And then what I'll do is I'll go back home to the main part. And then if I wanted to look at what I had just created, I would just go in, and if I click on this, it'll allow me to zoom to the frame. If I click on this, it will allow me to zoom to the frame. And there are all sorts of ways you can create zooms, but that's part of the presentation interface. As I say, right now we're editing. In addition to putting in your own text, you can also bring in graphics. You can bring in PowerPoint slides. It will allow you to import PowerPoints. It will allow you to import PDF files. So that as a result, you can put all sorts of things on your Prezi diagram, and in fact you could even use it as a tool for storing research results, which is what I did. Now, in addition to editing, you can also present, and that'll be the next thing that I talk about. Once you've edited your Prezi document, you can also set it up as a presentation. And the way the presentation works is you simply select the specific frames that you want to have presented. And you can see over here, there is a window which shows a series of frames that are numbered. And essentially your presentation path makes you jump from frame to frame. This, by the way, is the vertigo-inducing aspect of Prezi, because you don't always jump from frame to frame in a nice linear way. You zoom in, you zoom out. A lot of people like to rotate it, and it actually has been known to make people in the audience physically ill. But they're physically ill from watching a cool technology, or at least that's how the theory goes. So, if I click on present here, it goes full screen, which is not going to be very helpful with this Camtasia presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit, and then I'll show you an example of what this presentation looks like, or part of it looked like, here in the main window, which will keep it on my screen instead of filling it up. So you see we've got arrows down here, just like PowerPoint. If I clicked on this, it would go to full screen. But I'll just advance it, and what you'll see is moving frame to frame. And in some respects, the motion is nice. It shows you a variety of things. If you have the overall diagram in the background, it can sometimes be clarifying. But the truth is, a lot of people end up embedding PowerPoints in Prezi, so it's not necessarily going to be that different from PowerPoints. And you can drag through this. You can also embed audio in your presentation. You can share the presentation with multiple people. This present remotely essentially allows anyone with a web browser to come in to the presentation. If I click on this, it'll tell me what the web link is that I can use. I've done that with a conference call, had lots of people sitting in on the discussion. And it's kind of a cool tool. And sometimes when I am dealing with system level concepts, I find it to be fairly useful as a way of conceptualizing, organizing research, and so forth. But the truth is, it's a lot more work than a PowerPoint. And so I tend to use it sparingly.